Red Flags of Emotional Repression, Part 16, Worship. Now, the first thing that most of us probably think when we hear the term worship is religion, right? People singing with their hands up in the air, or maybe like on the ground, on their knees, bowing, yeah? And that's part of what I want to talk about today, along with some other forms of human behavior that you might not traditionally consider or view as worshipful. But whether it's in the religious or human realm, worship sort of implies levels, right? Like that there's beings or humans that are higher or lower than one another. And of course, it's typically the lower ones that are worshiping or revering or adoring or devoted to the higher ones. Although the flip side's also true in that the higher ones are sort of depending on the lower ones for their sense of power and self. So that could be viewed as a form of worship too. So levels and dependence are two of the key facets if we're talking about worship. And as it turns out, levels and dependence are also two of the biggest symptoms of emotional repression. If I repress and bury my vulnerable emotions like hurt, sadness, and grief, I'm forced up and away from them, right? I have to get big to stay safe. And alternately, if I repress my powerful emotions like anger and aggression, I'm forced down and away from them, right? I have to get small to protect myself. And all of this happens early on with our first two authorities, typically mom and dad, who we're dependent on. We originally repress these parts of ourselves in order to get our needs met from them. So how does this tie to worship? Religion first. People typically come into religion looking for a God and or a group of people that will finally meet their needs, right? Someone or someones who will finally love and accept me unconditionally. And so we're told, if you believe X, Y, Z, then you will get that. It'll happen. You'll get your needs met. It's a simple transaction, even though the religion usually will say that it's not. It always struck me funny that what they basically were saying was, God will love you unconditionally on one condition. Anyhow, this is the perfect reinforcement for emotional repression because it's very similar to what happened for many of us in childhood with our primary caregivers, right? We had to push down certain things in order to stay safe and get loved in that environment. For some of us, this looks like relating to our authorities or gods through being good, right? Through adoration or worship or agreement. For others, it looks like defying them, right? So disagreeing or opposing or resenting the powers that be. But it's all a form of worship. Because when we're in emotional repression, we're compelled to live in a world where there's seeming levels, like one up and one down, and dependence, where we're constantly and compulsively giving our power away in order to get our needs met. I'll tell you what it's like starting to come out of emotional repression. The levels go away. And frankly, the needs do too, because since we're starting to access and process the buried emotions that have been underground for so long and driving our suffering, we're able to meet our own needs. Yeah, and so the dependence on others to meet them, it just goes away. And this is the point at which, as we come out of emotional repression, worship, whether it be adoration or devotion or resentment, it kind of starts to become a moot point because since we've stopped creating our own suffering, why would we need someone else to take it away? If this makes sense and resonates with you, come learn more at repressiontest.com.